So with eclipses, we talk a lot about letting go, right? Releasing, letting go, making space. And I think for a lot of us, there's a ton of resistance emerging with the word letting go. Yeah, letting go. It's like, I don't want to let go of something because immediately my brain goes to, it means that something will be missing. It means that there won't be something there anymore. It's kind of like a gap that is created. It's a loss. And of course, my whole system is trying to, save me from not losing, from not creating gaps. It always wants to be full. It wants to be safe. And so there's this kind of illusion that is being created that letting go means somehow losing something. So I'm going to invite you to take a deep breath and reframe that letting go. Don't call it letting go anymore. We don't need to use those words. We're going to give it a new frame. We're going to call it changing how you relate to something. And I think that is really important because it actively empowers you. You are in power of deciding how your relationship is to a thing, to an object, to a person, to a situation, to a belief. And you are now ready to change how you relate to that. You're not losing, you're not letting go, you're changing your relation. And you're an active participant in that. You also get to decide why you want to change that relating and how you want to have it in the present and in the future. How that change will affect your life in a positive way. And so you can motivate yourself much more to make those changes. And I think that is really going to support you through this eclipse moment the most. I think I just want to begin this video by making very, very clear that something really helpful right now is reframing. The power of framing something and the power of changing that frame, inducing completely different emotions, different thoughts, different behaviors. So this eclipse, if we frame it as, oh my gosh, something horrible is going to happen, something's going to be taken away from me, and I'm going to suffer, and everything will be different and scary and new, well, then you're already priming yourself to feel like that. If you reframe that to, wow, this eclipse is really showing me what I didn't feel good with anymore in life. It's bringing me more clarity and understanding where my actions can be applied best at this time in life to support myself and actually creating differences that ultimately help me to feel more fulfilled, because I'm noticing, as I just realized, I'm not actually so fulfilled right now. So this is actually something helpful. It doesn't mean it will be easy. But the power of reframing is a really, really important tool. And also noticing how these framings are being constantly applied onto us. Yeah, someone else might be framing your life in a certain way, and depending on how you react to that, you will feel like you have more or less freedom and power in the situation. Do you feel like you're stuck right now with trying to figure out the perfect detail, just the one thing that will finally solve all of your life problems and make you feel great again, and everything is just going to be finally fixed if you just understood this one thing and were able to have this one detail in place? Well, I think this is a consequence of traveling through the whole spectrum of Virgo, so welcome to Virgo season. But actually, goodbye Virgo season, because we're about to end. And the ending is going to be a catalyst of realization, because let me tell you something, it's not about being perfect. And good and bad and perfect, all of those things are relative. It's really about figuring out what is honest, what is true, what is real, what is connected with facts and feeling, both of those things harmonizing and making sense together. The most important thing that I think we're feeling right now is understanding the importance of actions. Yeah, it's not just about finding the details, it's about finding the actions. Because you can have all of the details in place and you can have all the information that you need to change your life. If you don't act, nothing will change. This new moon is a solar eclipse. So this is bringing us a lot of change, a lot of momentum, and things will be different. And that's good, because different can be good. And we don't always have to be super afraid of it. I know it feels scary. I know there's resistance, and it's okay. You're going to take it step by step. And there's lots of tools to help us move through change, move through emotions, move through struggles. And we're doing it together also. You're not alone. You are doing it yourself because you are living as you, but you're not alone. Let me share a little bit of the astrological details for this new moon. It's on the 21st of September, just one day before we have the equinox, which is where the day and the night have exactly the same length. So it's a moment of balance, of also transitioning from one part, the day or the night being longer, to the other part being longer, depending on your place on the globe. And in this moment, it's good to just do a little check-in. Do a little check-in with yourself. We have the moon and the sun together. They are opposing Saturn and Neptune, which are conjunct. But Neptune is in the very first degree of Aries. Saturn is in 28 degrees of Pisces. They're both retrograding. And the sun and the moon are also trining Pluto on one side and Uranus on the other side, which are both in 1 degrees of Aquarius and of Gemini, and are also retrograding. So all of these major planets are being aspected. Additionally, we have aspects between Venus and Uranus. We have a square. We also have aspects between Jupiter and Chiron, a square. We also have a square between Jupiter and Mars. Mars is in the last degree of Libra, in opposition to Chiron. That's also kind of intense. We're kind of like wrapping up all of this like diplomatic acting and trying to balance and harmonize things while Mars is preparing to go into Scorpio. And so before you get lost on hearing all of these words and details, what does it mean? It means we have a really intense moment where we're having this realization about change. We're also noticing details. We're really focused on cleansing. Yeah, that's Virgo. Cleansing, healing, understanding mundane daily details and effects, understanding the digestive system, both metaphorically and physically, physiologically. We have a moment where we really want to get organized, and we really want to reorganize and reorder. And on the other side, we have this intense energy of like moving back into understanding how our beliefs and thoughts and illusions, how are they kind of shaping that? How are they directing that? It's kind of like a moment where there's a really strong reality check happening, and at the same time, it's really hard to understand what is reality, right? Because we also need to understand how the idea of reality like is formed and what impacts that, and how these things like influence each other. That reality, from where was it born? How did it emerge? This is happening on a collective level, right? So politically, like where did that narrative emerge? From where did that story emerge? Where did that identity emerge? And also personally, how did your life story emerge for you to tell it in that way? How did your body's story emerge? How did the, neurotransmitter channels in your body emerge from? Why did they begin to behave in a certain way? At what point in your life did you begin having those cravings, or forming an addiction, or just like establishing a relationship with this thing that now you're realizing, okay, fact check, reality check. How is this serving me? Is this a craving I desire from my own free will? Or has it really been hijacked? Has it been influenced? So it's a good moment for shadow work, meaning asking yourself uncomfortable questions that allow you to see the other side of what is trying to limit you from changing. What is holding you there? There's a part of you that doesn't want the change. Otherwise, you would easily be supporting the change. But if you notice that's not the case, ask yourself, how does it benefit me to not change, basically? Which part of me doesn't want to change and why? Why is it good for me to stay the same? What is that belief? And then do a reality check, do a fact check. The 29 degrees of Virgo, where this eclipse is happening, is called the anaretic degree. It's also called like a crisis degree. And what happens in those degrees is always going to be very intense and kind of recapping also the entire realizations of the whole sign. So everything that you've been thinking about and understanding and realizing in the last month is kind of like culminating right now. And the Sabian symbol for where this eclipse is happening, it reads, totally intent upon completing an immediate task, a man is deaf to any allurement. And the keynote reads, the total concentration required for reaching any spiritual goal. And in the book also it goes on describing that this symbol really reminds us that we must understand that what must be done, it must be done so precisely that no outer voices can penetrate your mind. So it really aligns with this energy of Virgo, of reclaiming your sovereignty, reclaiming your own control. And all of those outer things, all of those Saturnian, Piscean belief voices that want to try to tell you what's better or what's more correct or what's more perfect or what's good and bad, and putting all of these emotions and feelings like shame and guilt, that needs to be just kind of tuned out for a moment so you can actually listen to yourself, right? Reclaiming your own authority, autonomy, sovereignty, your inner voice, your inner wisdom. But in order to do that, you also need to be doing the shadow work, because you also have parts inside of yourself that are kind of like chattering and trying to make you believe something different. And yeah, there's many different reasons why those parts are there, but it's about recognizing them, right? I feel that one of the main topics that we are really realizing right now is the importance of doing, and what happens when you don't only talk, but when you also do. And that goes both ways. On one side, it's like all of the possibilities, all of the dreams, all of the things you want to envision for yourself, for your life, and we collectively in the world, how can we really make those happen if we act? And a really prominent example of that is this whole movement in Nepal led by teenagers, led by the youth, right? Where in like a really short time, I think it was 48 hours, they were able to overthrow their government. They organized themselves through online tools. They learned how to use VPN networks. They learned how to like really go incognito underneath the surface of where this like mass surveillance is trying to control them, this like Saturnian, Piscean part, right? And now they're like using the tools and getting really disciplined and structured and setting up systems that kind of go outside of those details, finding the detail of like, okay, what can we do to not be seen? Well, let's use a VPN. How can we really like quickly and effectively vote for someone new? Okay, let's use Discord. And then boom, they have a new government, right? So that's one way, one example, but it also goes the other way around. So also knowing that all of the things that you constantly talk about, well, they could also really become truth, become reality. Because why would you keep talking about them if you didn't want them to become reality, right? And I think a prominent example for that is also, for example, this public shooting of the US politician Charlie Kirk, where a lot of people are really horrified at something like that happening in the United States. And while it is always horrific for something like that to happen, especially in what claims to be a democracy, it's just kind of not aligned with a democracy, right? But we also have to look at all of the things and all of the beliefs that lead to something like this happening, where in particular, this public figure was constantly lifting up exactly the same values that then create exactly this kind of action. Very vocal about pro-gun policy, very vocal about taking things into your own hands, very emotional, like really rallying with people's emotions such as anger, even publicly speaking about public assassinations as something that he believes we should bring back. So he's literally speaking these things into existence. If those are the values that this person is fostering, then something like a public assassination is exactly fitting to those values. So it shouldn't surprise. I think it's difficult to complain about something like that happening if you're also supporting those values, right? Then if you don't want that to happen, you need to think about, oh, then maybe we should want different values, right? Let's maybe not raise those values. Let's actually raise different values. Maybe let's raise the value of peace and not public assassination. And let's raise the value of listening to each other in discourse and not screaming. And let's raise the value of people shouldn't own guns. And let's raise those values instead. So it's about really being real and understanding how action and belief really fit together. And so these eclipse moments are really bringing these kind of more radical topics to the surface. Those are just two examples. Please remember that there's so much going on in the world. If I would sit here and tell you all of it, it would be like a multiple hour video, right? But notice what is coming up for you and how that relates to what I just shared. Also, if you, for example, follow astrologer Pam Gregory, she talks a lot about how specific countries are affected by this eclipse, because a lot of them are also really rearranging right now, right? And we have all of these weird meetings between politicians that haven't been like kind of meeting and talking with each other in this way in many years. We have a lot of nations wanting to come together to regroup who is like supporting each other, and there's a general movement of wanting to rearrange and redistribute like the sense of power in the world. And this eclipse right now is affecting a lot of like big countries' charts. If you look at a country's personal chart, you can see like where's the ascendant, where's their midheaven, and these eclipses are affecting like a lot of the charts of the EU and of Russia and of the USA. There's more examples, and if you're interested in that kind of stuff, you should go watch Pam Gregory's astrology videos. It's super interesting. She always goes very into detail. But yeah, this right now is really, part of this larger movement that we're experiencing of these big changes in the world, these global changes. And so I think it's really important, as I mentioned before, to rephrase this letting go. Let's let go of our government. Let's let go of democracy. Let's let go of the euro. Let's let go of our, values, and just ask yourself instead, how is this relationship not working anymore, not feeling mutually beneficial? And how do we want to change how we relate instead? And that can sometimes mean not wanting to relate anymore at all, not wanting to talk or not wanting to be in contact. And sometimes it can mean giving the relationship a new name, or giving it a new purpose, or giving it new rules and agreements, or giving it a new design, changing the frequency of meetings, or, it's abstract, but I hope you get the point. And in your personal life, of course, this also becomes very relevant. And with Virgo Pisces specifically, the topic of health. So for me, that is really about understanding, those relationships between the different health components of your body, and really understanding how to get more clear, to get more disciplined, and to get more structure, and to understand what are the bigger, the wider, the Piscean ways of viewing that allow you to really understand where to change systemic things in your life, in your habits, in your daily decisions, because you understand how that influences actually the outcome. And by, taking that into your responsibility again to create more health. So I'm thinking here of the gut system, the gut microbiome. Understanding, for example, how the health of your whole digestive system impacts not only if you have a stomach ache or not, but it impacts your neurological functions. It impacts your hormonal system. It impacts how your body can communicate, with itself. And so your mental health, your psychological health is hugely connected to your gut health. And there are neurons, in your gut. And so it also affects how your intuition is functioning. And that affects how you make decisions in life. And all of those things affect, if you feel good or if you don't feel good. And that affects how you behave socially. And that affects how we create a climate in a country, in a community. So all of those things, the personal health, how does that affect also these bigger life topics? How are these bigger life topics affecting your personal health? Because you might be really trying hard to be healthy, but actually the supermarkets where you're buying your food and the companies that are making your products, they're not really interested in your health, and they're actually putting a bunch of stuff inside of that food that is making you feel really bad. And so understanding those things, or even how food is grown and how many nutrients are in the soils, and if the governments are also taking steps to, provide that we have nutrient-rich, nutrient-dense soils available for agriculture. And where's the money being spent for supporting that? How are farmers being supported? What is the legal situation there? Because that's affecting me as a consumer, that's affecting me as someone who buys food, given that we are probably not all growing our own food at the moment. So all of these connections, it's really time to bring those connections together and understand where can we act and what do we believe about that stuff. Do you believe that it all doesn't matter? Or do you believe that it does matter? Do you believe that you have the power to change something? Or you believe that you're just gonna feel bad for the rest of your life? Because that impacts the actions that will take place or not. So I think it's a good moment to also really reconnect with understanding what tools are available, to remember how to use those tools and to actually take actions without being distracted by the outside. Setting your mind, your goal, for maybe you want to be more healthy, maybe you want to be better with your finances, maybe you want to be more politically active, maybe you want to be a better, show up in a different way in your family or in your community or in your friendships. Maybe you want to be more kind to yourself. Whatever it is that you are noticing right now is really, really important for you to change your relationship to it. See it as that. And every time that resistance comes up, I invite you to remember that these things need to be practiced. These things need to be established through a continuation of action. It's usually not a one-time effort that gets us to the goal. It's usually a one-time effort that leads to a second effort and a third effort, and eventually something starts rolling and picks up momentum, and then it might feel easier, and then there might be an obstacle to overcome and go through, and then eventually there is what you may have defined as your goal. That's also an important aspect. Define what is the goal. How do you know that you're moving towards your goal? What will help you see and feel and understand that you're moving towards the goal right now? What are the indicators for that, right? So if you want to get more healthy, how will you notice that you are more healthy? And how will you also notice that you're taking the steps? How are you going to see and feel and acknowledge that you are doing the step versus telling yourself you're going to do it and then not doing it? So that's the main difference right now. The last thing I want to mention is that we have a tendency to believe that a tool or something that we do to change, that we can do that once we feel better, right? We can move into the new apartment once we feel good enough. We can change our eating habits once we feel good enough. We can start going to the gym once we feel good enough. We can start, being politically active once we feel good enough. We can meet our friend once we feel good enough. And this constant idea, this mental loop of doing something when you already feel good is jumping over the fact that many of those things are there to help you feel better. And the tools to help you feel better they are not necessarily only done when you feel good, but when you feel bad. That's when you should actually be doing them the most, because they help you feel better. So for example, if you're depressed and you really can't go outside and you have struggled meeting your friends or reaching out to someone, you may be thinking, I'll reach out to them when I feel better. But it's the reaching out to them that will make you feel better, right? And that's hard for the body to remember if it doesn't have a lot of data. So give it some data by doing it, and you'll start to understand and internalize that those tools to help you are helping you feel better because you do them when you don't feel good, right? And that's a key understanding to overcoming resistance. And that is also somehow reframing, right? It's not that I have to do this so that I feel better, or I have to do this when I feel better, but I can do this in order to feel better. Doing this will help me to feel better. I'm doing this because I want to feel better. Yeah. And for anyone who's interested in going deeper into those kinds of topics right now and really giving the whole Virgo season a grand finale, I invite you to listen to a podcast by The Diary of a CEO, a podcast about dopamine. It was from 8 or 9 months ago. I'll put the link in the description. It's a really, really interesting podcast where the guest talks a lot about the dopamine regulation in the body, about how different forms of addiction can develop, can, show how we can even tell that we're addicted or not. And it's really mind-blowing. It's not just, hard drugs that causes addictions. It's a lot of emotions, patterns, and behaviors that are also addictive and that really create strong changes in our dopamine balance in our body. And I believe that a lot of modern day people, probably you too, and me for sure also, we have at least some areas in our life where we might be regularly experiencing too much dopamine in a very unnatural way. Just an example is scrolling on your phone, right? We have this unnatural, huge release of dopamine that can really offset the homeostasis in the body, the balance. And so it's really important to know things like this so that you can actually reclaim that inner decision-making authority and you can make different decisions for your life. So I think that, researching a topic like that is just one way in which you can support the kind of wrapping up of this Virgo energy and helping you to move and prepare for Libra season. So that's my advice for you for this eclipse season. If you want some support with whatever you're going through right now, I offer one-on-one mentoring. I also work with tools such as tarot and astrology, looking at your personal charts and situations. And I also do something called systemic constellation, which can look at really the patterns in your lineage, in your ancestry, or in the different parts of your emotional system to help you to reestablish balance and harmony within that system, which is a really powerful way of supporting movement and overcoming challenges and inner blockages and difficult emotions and things like that. So if you're interested in working with me, I'll put all of the information down below. You can contact me through my website. And I also have 2 spots open next month for an intensive mentoring, like a multiple week mentoring program. So if you're interested in that, let me know. I'm super curious to get to know you. If you enjoyed this video, please share it with your friends, share it with anybody who you think could benefit. Please remember to be kind to yourself, to just take it one step at a time. That's what I always do. If stuff gets too hard, just kind of put it down a notch, make the steps so small that you can do them. And then just keep going from there. Remember to, stay in love, stay together, stay connected. Please subscribe to the channel and I'll see you with the next new moon.